Hello everybody and welcome to the Import-Export Hub channel weekly newsreel. My name is Bogdan and on this channel I cover import-export related topics, and if you're new on this channel I just want to tell you that before I start the weekly news report I ask my viewers a quiz question related to importing or exporting, and the question for this week is related to asparagus. So who was the largest exporter of asparagus in terms of value for 2020? And the options here are Spain, Mexico, or the United States. And the correct answer is Mexico, with more than $372 million worth of exports. And I hope that you'll find this information useful for your next trivia game. And by the way, I almost forgot to ask you for a quick favor. Anytime during this video, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe buttons. It really means a lot to me. Anyway, let's begin with the Freightos index, which this week is at $6,463. So almost $200 increase since last week. In terms of big movers, we have the North Europe to North America East Coast lane with a 9% increase, and the North America East Coast to China lane who had a 7% decrease. For the cross Suez lanes, the figures are more or less as those from the previous week, so slightly above $11,000. And with this astronomical freight race, I'm officially starting the news coming from Drewry via Maritime Executive. And it seems that 2021 will mark the first year in the more or less short history of the container shipping when ocean carriers' forecasted profits will approach the $100 billion mark. I won't dive into analyzing the drivers of these skyrocketing freight rates, but from a personal point of view, the shipping industry, with all the vertical integration taking place in the last couple of years, had somehow surrounded itself with moats, and now their bargaining power is through the roof, if you ask me. I don't buy the mainstream economic theories of the invisible hand or the demand and supply equilibrium. As for me, the equipment shortages, the port congestions, or the shift from buying services to buying products are just a posteriori explanations that somehow complement the shipping industry speech. And I bet that there are some other actors involved in the supply chain and the transportation industry that have more information available than I do on the issue of congestion or the lack of equipment and so on, but they won't say anything because they are somehow afraid that they will lose business. Anyway, this is my personal and biased opinion, and I don't want to cover more on this subject as I'm getting really infuriated, and I think it's better if I will move on to my second news, which concerns Ever Given, who finally sails out of the Suez Canal after more than 100 days after getting grounded there. Here I just want to give you some information regarding the compensation claim from the Suez Canal Authority, who initially demanded more than $900 million. Figure, of course, that the Ever Given owners and insurers disputed, and after long negotiations, both parties finally reached common ground with an undisclosed settlement. But if I were to ballpark, I think the compensation ranges around $350 to $400 million. Anyway, I am glad that this is over, that clients can expect finally their containers to arrive at destination. Now, moving on to my next news, coming all the way from Taiwan, and we see here that exports technology goods drove Thailand's exports for the 12th straight month. And there was robust demand for laptops and tablets, of course, needed to complement and support the working from home or learning activities, especially from countries who are on the path of economic recovery. And I'm speaking here about, I don't know, China, the United States, or Europe. Also, let's not forget the semiconductor demand, who is also a major driver for Taiwan exports. So good news showing that major economies are trying to somehow restart their economies, and I hope that other countries will follow soon. Jumping on to my next article, this which comes all the way from Azerbaijan, which is a major petroleum exporter, by the way. As it seems that the government strategy aimed at diversifying Azerbaijan exports is paying off, as the non-oil exports increased by 27% in relative terms and by $1.1 billion in absolute ones between January and June this year compared to the same period of 2020. Again, for the reported period, the exports of sugar rose 2.5 times, those of metals and the metals byproducts rose by 2.4 times. Again, other drivers of Azerbaijan's exports were the cotton yarn and cotton fiber sectors. The aluminium products rose as well, helping the diversification of Azerbaijan's economy, as their strategy is to double the non-oil related exports by 2025. And again, having in mind the current trends in mobility, for sure, countries that rely heavily on petroleum exports should consider diversifying their exporting strategies in order to achieve economic growth. And I think this is a strong signal that petroleum will become obsolete for much of the energy inputs needed in the economy in, I don't know, 50 years or so. Anyway, it's again pure speculation, and I'm not an expert in the energy sector, so I think it's better if I move on to my next news, which relates to the ASEAN member states who have different and relatively high trade compliance costs that potentially may impede the development of regional value chains. The debate is around Article 7.7 from the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement that requires all WTO members, including the ASEAN ones, to provide additional trade facilitation measures related to import, export, or transit formalities and procedures to operators who qualified as authorized economic operators. It seems also that ASEAN members are at different stages in implementing these articles, so Article 7.7, and thus the relatively high trade compliance costs and delays resulting from there. From my point of view, I think that the intra-Asian imports and exports will be the next big driver, and implementing some more or less uniform rules for the ASEAN members for sure will help them even more drive the intra-Asian exchange of goods to a whole new level. Now, it remains to be seen also from a geopolitical point of view how fast this implementation process will take, as there are some industries that somehow overlap within ASEAN member states, and every member state, of course, wants to protect its local industry. Anyway, let's wait and see how this will develop, and I think we can move on to my next news, which involves China's ambitious plan to build a canal trade route from Greece to Central Europe, so from the Aegean Sea to the Danube River. This is a really ambitious project, if you ask me, which is under the Belt and Road $3 trillion initiative, $3 trillion initiative, sorry, to connect the trade routes from Africa, Asia, and Europe. In order for this project to go forward, China will have to conduct negotiations with Greece, Serbia, North Macedonia, and some other Central European countries. And although it might seem feasible and could have benefits to the landlocked countries involved in this project, for me it's pretty hard to believe that this project will find support from the countries directly concerned, and of course the European Union, because for sure the European Union will have something to say about this project. And speaking of the European Union, I want to move on to my last news. One concerning the 10-year anniversary of the European Union-South Korea trade agreement. And in short, these are some of the takeaways from this 10 years anniversary. So for the agri-food sector from the European Union, this trade agreement meant that wine exports tripled, olive oil exports more than doubled, and cheese exports multiplied sixfold. Of course, just to cover some of the biggest increases, as I am sure that there were other areas in which the exported values increased as well. Anyway, again, for the European Union, the footwear and hat sector exports multiplied by 5. Textile exports more than doubled, and wood exports tripled. So clearly the trade agreement between the European Union and South Korea supports lots of businesses, small, medium, and large ones involved in the global value chain. And I do agree that in order to create value, in order to facilitate trade, and in order to grow and support the economy, there should be more trade agreements in place. Anyways, there are also lots of debates about how the rich and developed countries, if you want, are taking advantage of these trade agreements in relation with the poor or developing countries, and there is much to say about this. There are lots of geopolitical interest, and I am not an expert in the political game, and I think it's better if I leave the speculations for experts. And with this message, I think my time is up. These were the news for this week. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to comment and hit the like and the subscribe buttons. And until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.